Mark Davis.
Come on down!
Tom Brady.
Come on down!
John Spatek.
Come on down!
It's time to pick your franchise quarterback.
All right, let me quarterback this thing.
Let's talk about the plight of the quarterback. And in this video, we're going to talk about the plight of JaMarcus Russell. And then we're also going to talk about Fernando Mendoza, who's actually going to be more than likely, there's very high probability that he'll be the #1 overall pick. And I want to talk about, it's sort of a compare contrast as it relates to both. Now, JaMarcus was drafted out of LSU, first overall in the 2007 draft. Now, what I'm going to attempt to do is paint a picture from the organization's standpoint, because mostly everybody, they hate JaMarcus, they despise JaMarcus, but you have to look at the franchise that he went to. You also have to look at the condition of the franchise at that time, and the Raiders were in complete dysfunction. And I remember when Mike Vick had got out of prison, and I remember Tony Dungy had told a story, I think he was on NBC, and he talked about potential teams that Mike was interested in. And I believe the Raiders were a potential candidate, but probably a dark horse. Probably not really serious about it, but I remember Tony saying, no, that's not the right place for you to go. And so the plight of any quarterback, they have to be in an organization that is stable. Or in other words, they should be in an organization that has stability. And the Raiders usually haven't had that stability in a long time. And when you get a #1 overall pick, and back in those days, you didn't have a rookie scale where there's a fixed amount based off your selection. So you could negotiate some astronomical contract, or your agent would negotiate this massive contract. Your goal was to get as much upfront money, and if you didn't, you would hold out. And so JaMarcus holds out, just like every other rookie would. #1 overall pick, he has leverage based on all his predecessors and whatnot. And he was an athletic freak. He could throw the ball 70 yards, tight spiral on one knee. He had good movement from the athletic perspective, but clearly it was Al Davis' pick, because Al Davis usually preferred athletes versus scholars of athletes, or people that's actually in the film room. And so if you look at the Raiders and look at their history with quarterbacks, I can only think of a couple quarterbacks. Obviously you had Tom Flores, you had Dale LaMonica, but then you had Ken Stabler, and Ken Stabler had the most success out of a drafted quarterback. Then you could think of perhaps Derek Carr, and so love him or hate him, he was drafted as well, and he's pretty successful. I still think he underachieved. I don't think he was worth his contract, just my opinion. But naturally, the Raiders have always dealt with retreads. They've always gotten somebody like Jim Plunkett, and Jim Plunkett is a lot like Fernando Mendoza. Gonna be the #1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner. He's gonna have a lot of weight on his shoulder because he's trying to save a franchise that has not been relevant in probably about 2 decades, really since Super Bowl 37, which the Raiders have never really gotten over. And Plunkett goes to New England and just doesn't fare well, simply because that team wasn't built around him, but they just had certain areas or certain deficiencies, and he crashed out in New England, ended up in San Francisco, and then he comes to Oakland, right? The Pastorini trade happens. Pastorini from Houston gets injured, and Plunkett takes over and guides the Raiders to their 2nd world championship, and then 3 seasons later, he gets his 2nd ring. But as I'm trying to articulate, the Raiders usually don't fare well by drafting a quarterback fresh from college. And so I think it's different that you need to have stability. And I think they have the right people in office now. And it's going to be a point to where Mark Davis is going to need to let Spatek and Brady and the head coach and offensive coordinator, you're going to have to let people do their jobs. And you're going to have to let people get and let people, just leave people alone and let them do their job. There can be no more somebody's out after 2 seasons, somebody's out after a season. It can be no more of that if you want to be successful. And we still don't know what Fernando is going to actually want to do, because again, he could throw a Eli, he could throw a John Elway. You recall Elway was drafted by the Colts, as they were known back then. He didn't play for them. He was going to go play baseball, and then he ended up going to Denver, and the rest is history. The same for Eli. Eli did not want to play for San Diego. He had his reasons, so he didn't play for San Diego. He ended up going to play for the Giants, and again, as they say, the rest is history. So there are a lot of things in flux, I think, with picking the quarterback, with the Raiders' history of picking quarterbacks straight out of college versus signing a veteran. The Raiders had success with different veterans, obviously notably Rich Gannon, 2002 NFL MVP, back-to-back Pro Bowl MVPs. At that time was the closest to breaking Dan Marino's 1984 record of 5,084 yards, and Gannon threw for about 4,700 yards. And that record's been since broken by Drew Brees, who's on his way to Canton, and rightfully so. But usually retreads, usually veteran type of quarterbacks, the Raiders have fared pretty good. Now, I want to throw Lamar in the mix because Lamar is sort of an anomaly. And I think because the trade rumors are starting to heat up, and they always heat up right before the Super Bowl, before the league year starts in March. And I don't think the Raiders should grab him. I think that he's fool's gold. I think he's very good, but I just don't see that leadership quality, the embodiment of leadership. I don't see him in people's faces holding people accountable. I don't see an X's and O's type of guy. Like, you can tell a student of the game. You can tell, who's actually paying attention in meetings and really trying to get to that next level. And I think Lamar is kind of in the proponent that, hey, I'm athletic. I make things happen impromptu, and that I don't need to study the playbook intently. I don't need to do X, Y, Z, or there's a certain set of rules that's involved. So you have a regular rule, then you have a Lamar rule, and you get the special treatment. He's a star player, I get it, but to some extent, there also has to be some accountability, and I don't see that enough in Lamar. Not to mention that he's, body isn't wearing out, but he's taken a lot of abuse for the past several seasons, and you saw that this past season where he wasn't at full strength. And so his contract is about to be up, and I think he's due for like a $60 million extension. So who's would he come to Las Vegas? I think it's an attractive proposition, but I'm against it. Now I could see him heading to Miami because you got the Tua situation. Tua will never take a snap under center for Miami again. It's just a matter of when Miami's going to cut him loose, they're going to count against the cap. But you probably may have enough cap room to get Lamar. But I think Lamar probably won't end up in Baltimore, be in Baltimore for too long after this. But I wanted to throw him out there because you got some different scenarios. You could grab Fernando, or you can do a sign and trade, and you can grab Lamar, and then you could trade your number 1 overall pick for more draft capital. So Raiders are in a unique situation, but the goal is to avoid the JaMarcus Russell failure, because the Raiders failed JaMarcus Russell. It wasn't necessarily JaMarcus failing the Raiders failed JaMarcus. And Lane Kiffin actually wasn't a bad coach, but again, how can you do your job if your owner is always meddling all the time? Ask Mike Shanahan, ask John Gruden. It's Al, and Al's still my guy, without a doubt. And you gotta admit they got bash Al, but I call things like I see it. I cannot tell a lie. And so you have to step back and let people do their jobs and not meddle. And so this is why you see teams like Baltimore, like Pittsburgh, like New England, they understand that. And this is why they have the longevity. This is why they've been in a ton of Super Bowls. Even the Bills of the early 90s being in 4 straight Super Bowls, they understood how to run a program or run an organization. So let me know what y'all think. You think we should grab Lamar? Do you think we should go ahead and draft Mendoza? I think the is in a better state than it was in 2007. And I think that Fernando, if he wants to come, I think he has a chance to be a part of something special. Sort of like an Indiana in a sense. Haven't won much in a long time or anything at all, or been relevant, and then you get to come in and just completely change the landscape. So we're not gonna let this subject go. I'm gonna have some more videos and whatnot, and I'll stick with the channel. Again, I'm just starting back up. And don't forget to like and share and subscribe, and don't forget to look at my other work here on the screen, and I'm gonna see y'all on the next video. I'm out.